Hello, my friends. So recently there's been a little bit of controversy between two of the bigger names in the sort of the online traditionalist pagan circles, and I don't want to get myself involved directly because I have a good deal of respect for both of the parties involved. I appreciate what both of the individuals involved are doing, so I don't want to get myself involved, but I have been interested in sort of the discussion and debate and dialogue that's been surrounding the controversy, and it's gotten me interested in sort of presenting my general perspective, my general understanding of paganism and what it means to me. So I just wrote this short essay. I hope you enjoy. It's called What Paganism Means to Me. A common criticism of paganism is the fact that very little material survives from the pre-Christian past of Europe. We are limited mostly to documents written or passed down to us by Christians after the Christianization of Europe, and much time and effort has been spent attempting to reconstruct authentic pagan beliefs, customs, myths, rituals, etc. from these limited sources. A common response to this is that we do have some historical sources, thank Odin, and through lots of careful study and analysis, we can at least come close to knowing how our ancestors practiced their religion. But what if we couldn't do that? What if we had zero authentic sources that could be preserved, or that preserved the true beliefs and practices of our ancient forebears? Would we be doomed to atheism or Christianity or some other religion with their well-preserved scriptures? Recently, a guy on my Discord said the following, quote, "To completely disregard these Christian sources is ridiculous, and taken to its extreme, you would have to give up on paganism entirely." Here, I think that he is expressing an idea held by pagans and their critics alike. But I just wanted to read out what I responded to him with. This is what I said. "I think that even if we didn't have a single written document or primary source, we could still live as our ancestors did. If the destruction of primary sources was all it took to kill our gods and crush our values, then it's already been done. But religion, not just in the dusty old scholastic Christian sense, but in a truly lived sense, is something like making the whole of your life and art form. It's having your daily habits, your home, your way of making a living, all fall into a certain spiritual expression that tells what animates your life. I am 100% positive that there are people out there who have read all of the primary sources and texts and studied the history in depth, etc., but in their actual habits and how they make their living, they are as distant from our ancestors as a Hollywood Jew." Another thoughtful commenter replied to my statement, saying, quote, "I agree, but that doesn't mean learning about the actual practice of our ancestors is not a worthwhile enterprise, as one would seek any knowledge or wisdom, especially that of our forebears." A fine statement, to which I responded, "I don't disagree with that, but if I had to choose between living a simple, sustainable life the way our ancestors did versus being extremely well-versed in historical knowledge of it while still living a modern urban lifestyle, I would take the former. I realize that they are not necessarily mutually exclusive, but I still think the first is more choice-worthy if I had to choose. Academic or scholarly knowledge gained from the primary sources can be valuable, but not necessarily. I personally know some real modern bugmen who have a nerd-like obsession with European history, but in all other respects, they live a totally anti-traditional, modern lifestyle. This is not worth anything to me. But, on the flip side, a man might have a homestead with his wife, raise a handful of children, and make his living by his direct relationship with nature. This is European man in his natural environment. And this is choice-worthy, all on its own. Not only is it choice-worthy, but it was the way that the vast majority of our ancestors, even as recently as pre-World War II era, lived. And this way of living is still quite accessible to us. And there are some of us who already live this dream. Now, just as a side note, I would like to add, despite how it may appear, I am not a primitivist or a minimalist when it comes to technology. I think that we should be utilizing technology to achieve the sovereign, sustainable permaculture lifestyle in whatever creative and innovative ways we can think of. But anyway, I would go even further than what I just said and say that the European man in his natural environment will be closer to the gods of our forebears than the urban bugman who studied them in depth for years. That is because the gods are, no matter how you understand them, the gods are forces in our lives which have a commanding influence on us. They're powers that exercise control over us in some way, shape, or form. And the gods of the urbanite are almost always money, social approval, pleasure, comfort, and other idols of that ilk. Conversely, the European man in his natural rural environment, who bases his living on his direct relationship with nature, has a life that is deeply influenced by natural phenomena. The motions of the sun and moon, for example, become infinitely more important than the motions of cars and traffic. And the gods reside not in the concrete and steel in the city, but in the wood and soil, stones and streams of our natural setting. And as if I hadn't gone far enough, I have faith in the following. Our pre-Christian pagan religion was the expression of our spirit as Europeans, living in our natural habitat. I don't believe our forebears could have ever been any other way. It was necessary because of who and where they were as a people. And I believe, I have faith, that if we were to return to their more natural way of life, then eventually, even if it was over 100 years, hundreds of years, something fundamentally similar to the religion of our forebears would emerge again. It's just in our spirit as a race. So, to return to the original question, do we need priests of paganism who can do all of the scholastic exegesis? What these types of people unearth can be quite valuable, and it is almost always interesting, at least. And I really don't want to disparage their efforts, because I too am part scholar. I'm in my 4th year of university, majoring in philosophy, so I must be at least part scholar. It can definitely be interesting to investigate and fill in the details of certain festivals, sacrifices, initiation rituals, or to analyze Old Norse texts and puzzle over what Loki meant in a certain line or what Odin represents in a certain story. But I would caution against putting excessive weight on such an enterprise. I just want us to keep the big picture in mind. The European people are facing a major crisis. Our governments and established institutions are, to put it simply, working their hardest against us. We are facing demographic replacement in our own homelands, and even worse, we are facing an inevitable collapse of the exploitative economic system brought on by global industrialization. I do not see any plausible way to save this sinking ship in the long run. We must find some way to escape it and create our own sustainable societies where our people can live sovereign lives and weather the cataclysmic storm that approaches. This, I believe, ought to be our primary focus, and those who achieve it are certainly more praiseworthy. Or those who achieve it are certainly praiseworthy models of excellent conduct. We shouldn't aim merely at having knowledge of our ancestors, but at reviving within ourselves the essentials of their lifestyle in general, because everything is downstream from that essential way of being. That is what paganism means to me. Thank you for watching.